Welcome everyone to this talk about building mobile applications with Java and Eclipse. We have a late-minute speaker change, so I'm not Grant Ronald, I'm not Jay Schmalzer either. So my name is Frank Nimphius. I'm from the Oracle Product Management team. Actually, we call ourselves the Mobility and Application Development Tools Product Management team. So I deal with Java development tools, I deal with mobility development tools, and that is what this session is about. Now, I guess everyone has a mobile phone, so I don't need to explain what mobile is and how important this is, and that the transition actually that we see in the industry moves from web application development towards mobile development. That's not an ad hoc race. It's not that people go head over heels from a web-based development platform to mobile, but there's a transition that we see, and that is what a lot of vendors, not only Oracle, builds a lot of software for, backend software, but also on-device software, and that is what actually this talk is about. Now, I save you all of the talk about dilemmas and the challenges that we have today, because I feel that we need to be more positive, and dilemma sounds negative. So I go straight to the solution. And the solution is like, what if you as a Java developer with your existing web development skills and Java skills are able to build mobile applications on the iOS platform and on the Android platform without having to relearn or just learn specific device, specific technologies. Now, what if you could use your architecture skills as well when it comes to mobile view controller architectures that you all are aware from the web-based development? Or, I don't know, anyone who has JavaServer Faces skills here in the room. Now, what if you could use that skill to build mobile applications? I'm presenting here on Eclipse. Now, the software that I'm using for that is also available in Oracle JDeveloper, but we understand this is a Java Geek conference. So coming with JDeveloper, which is considered to be proprietary to Oracle, is not a good idea. So we show Eclipse here, and I will point out where you can get more information, where you can even download the plugin if you find it interesting, what I had to show here. So before going actually into any more talk here, let me show you something that is built the way that what I'm talking about. So just need to go to my iOS simulator. So I'm on the Mac here, though we say that the software runs in the end on Android and on iOS. Well, I show it on the iOS simulator because switching back and forth would just take too much of the time that I have, and an hour is really quick. Now, I practiced this session a couple of times, and an hour always was very short. So this is an application, and it says Oracle. You know, when you build an application, you can replace the splash screens. Now, that is an application that just shows you a specific look and feel, and that look and feel is exactly what you get when you run the same on Android. You need to trust me on that. Yeah. So I do have, you know, we all know smartphones and applications. We know we have somewhere we have a springboard that allows us to switch between different views. We know about list views. So if I go, for instance, to organization, then I do have IT. As we're all in IT, I switch to that. I can see a summary of IT. So here I have Alexander Hunold, obviously one of the team members in the IT department. I can see his performance. That's kind of the magical Gartner quadrant of, you know, performance over possibilities and potential that this guy has. I can see what the schedule is. So you see a timeline, and these are components that actually we build out of the box. So that is, you don't have to build these components. If I go to people and select one, then we also see map components. Now, all of these components run natively on device. Well, in my case, on the iOS device. So it's the second time you have to trust me. All of the components are pre-built for you, like in JavaServer Faces, where we have a component development model. We have the same in the software, which we call Mobile Application Framework, which I will introduce here. And the good news here is that if you come from a Java development background, well, that is how you code your client logic. If you're familiar with declarative development, visual development, or tech-driven development, then that is also what we provide here. But I will give you a better idea of what exactly the software can do. I don't fancy to spend too much time on marketing talks, so I will briefly just give you an overview. Then I will spend most of my time showing you a live demo, trying to build something fancy from a SOAP service show you master detail, and if time is left, how you can build an edit form quite quickly and use that to explain the tool to you. So even if you're not interested, it might be that you're coming into a competitive situation with us, so now you know us, at least our offering. Yeah. So if you're interested, well, you're welcome to download even the stuff and try it yourself. So I only have 2 agenda items. One is just to give you the brief overview, and then in the end, I will give you an architecture overview so you understand, for instance, where does Cordova sit, how do we do that, because it's a hybrid solution that we're building here. So the mobile application framework is a platform, it's a framework that we provide at Oracle, and this is a Java-based development framework that in the end generates user interfaces in HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. Now all of our components that we use declarative during development render this way on the mobile device, independent if it's iOS or Android. You see this little question mark here. Now this little question mark is for whatever platform we decide to go next for. Probably right now Windows looks very promising. Yeah. The good news here also is that, and I don't know if you suffered, anyone who is a mobile developer who recently kind of suffered from changes in the API, iOS changes, App Store changes, Android changes, something that actually impacts the application, needed some recoding. Now the base idea here is that you write it once, you deploy it to different target devices, and then you recompile in case that there is a change. Yeah, like for instance, the next upcoming change for iOS is that they require to have 64-bit support. So nothing could come in to the App Store that doesn't support 64-bit. Now, if that was something you built manually, probably you would have to do your hands-on. Now, in our case, in January, there will be a patch that just allows you to recompile the whole thing, and then it's a done deal. So this is the mission that we are having. So the way that we do this, PowerPoint doesn't work anymore. Here we go. So, Oracle Mobile Application Framework, the aim is to simplify development, though I will show you you can do the hard way as well. It's not that we just force you into declarative development if you don't like that. If you want to integrate jQuery Mobile, for instance, into a mobile application framework application that you built, you can, and I'll point that out. You have a choice of development tools. Well, as I said, I will use Eclipse today. It has offline capabilities, which means that there is a database that we deploy with the application, which is a SQLite database, so that you can keep data offline, or even just have kind of a strategy like local read, local write, which typically is more performant than just the remote access that normally you would have in enterprise mobility. You can access native features of your device, like GPS, like the camera, and we allow you to do this declaratively. And I show you how we do that. And the whole thing, and that's something that we take from our web offering, we allow you to do a modular development. So that is that if you build a mobile application, it doesn't mean that you build the whole application in just one workspace. It could be that you have a functionality that you want to reuse across mobile applications. So you build 3, 4, 5 mobile applications. Each of these needs a yellow book. So you can build this once, which we call a feature, deployed in a feature archive, and then can reuse the code without having to rewrite it. So the user interface options. So first of all, there's a technology called AMX, which stands for Application Mobile XML. And this is a declarative way. This is a tag-driven way, like JSPX or JSF, where you just compose the user interface out of tags, and you bind this declaratively. And then you can use HTML5 for programmatic and more sophisticated advanced options. Here's where, for instance, JavaScript would fit in if you're a JavaScript developer, or if you need to integrate your jQuery mobile, then you can do that as well. And there is remote URL. Now, you know that not everyone definitely will go straight for on-device for everything. So they might have a web application with a lot of adaptive design, responsive layout behavior, which they use currently just to run on the mobile device. Now, what you want to have ideally is just one application that allows you to navigate between all of the different areas, even if it's an application that doesn't sit on the device, but it's kind of queried from a remote server. And this is what we call remote URL. So mobile AMX, we do have more than 80 components, where in the mobile world, to be honest, input components are less interesting than graphs, charts, and visual components. Because the difference between the web and mobile is that web is all about data. Big data grids, tables, where mobile is all about information. You don't care for what is the data. You want to get information out. You have a thumb that navigates you through. You want to have a quick look at it. You don't want to miss the green light at the traffic light. And this is how you kind of work with mobiles. Mobiles don't give you the same space in the display. So there's not a lot of space just to show data, but actually information. And that is what it's all about. And we support this with components. And I show you how that works. So a declarative data binding. Well, we all understand we need to get some data. So we cannot work just with local data unless it's a catalog that the salesperson will just carry around and will never have to update anything in it. So typically you talk to remote services, be it SOAP services, REST services, something that hangs in the cloud. So you're not really kind of care for where the data goes. You just know there is an API, which is a web service-based API, and I get the data, and I might keep the data locally and then work with it locally, or just immediately update the remote database. So rendering, I said, is HTML5 and CSS and JavaScript at runtime, and there's a customizable look and feel at runtime. So what you see is the default look and feel, what we call the skin. You use Stylesheet and you can skin all of the components so that you get your corporate identity or your personal taste into the components. So we try our best thing to make our default look and feel look compelling and very close to the local iOS or Android standards. So what's really new is, and that's something that comes very close from JavaServer Faces, which is that we have a mobile application controller. Now, no single mobile application really works out of one single page. So you typically have to navigate it. There are different ways to navigate. Some are just hiding or showing different areas on a page, just mimicking or simulating as if they would navigate. Now here we do have a declarative way, a diagrammic approach, smile, a diagrammic approach to navigate between pages. And you know what the beauty is, and you will see that when I work with that in Eclipse. If you build on a larger mobile project, chances are very good that you have people in your team that have no clue. They're called managers now. So they have no clue. They're not technical. They are domain experts. So they know exactly what they're going to work with, what they want to have. Now, how a specific process works, which you may not know. But, you can sit together on a diagram and say, okay, now how does that process work? And you model the process. In the end, you go back to your development environment, in my case, Eclipse. You just open up the pages, fill the pages with live, deploy the application, and it's exactly done the way that you model it in here. And then for everything else, for every client interaction, you code this in Java. So here we have the same notion of managed beans. So we do have memory scopes that we can use where we can temporarily store data, but we also have managed beans that are managed by a feature by the framework. So if we look, and that's one of the last things I need to explain is the data access options, because I talk about declarative development. Now, how do we do that? Well, we have something called data controls, which are an abstraction layer that we build for specific data sources, in this case, SOAP or REST, and whatever will come in the future. So for SOAP and REST services, be it with XML payload or JSON payload, as far as the REST goes, we do have an adapter that we can use. So either it's directly a data control, a REST data control for XML, or a REST adapter that we can wrap in Java. And then from this, we create Java Bean data controls or just use the native data control. So we can have a Java Bean data control accessing the web service data control. Well, why do you want to do this? Well, if the web service data control directly accesses the web service and you want to cache some data, you always need to kind of get in the middle of it. And that is what you can do with this architecture. This goes to a binding layer, and this binding layer entitles us and enables the drag and drop development of the user interfaces. Security features are built in, and I mentioned that before. It's not just the client that you build for when you build a mobile application. It's kind of the middle tier. It's a security layer, security requirements for mobile pretty much different from security requirements you have on the web, because on the web you control everything on the server. Now in mobile, there's a lot of security that you need to control on the client, on the device. Simple example, authentication. So you require remote authentication. Now what if the user is offline? Bad luck, right? So you can say, well, just require local authentication. You can do that. What if the user got fired and it's an enterprise application? You know, you have a twist here. You can even say, okay, hybrid authentication, which means remote first, and if remote is not accessible, do it local so the user can work. Now, that is all kind of built into the framework, and you don't have to deal with that. Plus, Oracle, of course, we have a huge set of software that surrounds this, security software that we integrate with as well. So, now the tooling, I show you Eclipse, I don't show you JDeveloper. If you're a JDeveloper developer, you have to close your eyes and imagine, yes, I can do that in JDeveloper as well. Yeah. All right, so shortcuts, normally these are the slides that you put at the end of the presentation, which has the effect that nobody reads them. So I put them up here. So take your photos. This is where you can get additional information. And now it's on me to basically impress you. So let me quickly go to my beautiful SOAP service that I have deployed to my local machine. So this is maybe where you will see I have great performance in. It's a SOAP service that I built with Enterprise Java Beans, just annotated it and deployed it to WebLogic Server, but that doesn't mean anything. I can deploy it to everywhere. This is Eclipse. It's a Luna version. Now this Eclipse version has the mobile application framework built in if you download the Oracle Enterprise Pack for Eclipse package, which is an offering that Oracle has. It's free to use. You just download it and it has an Eclipse version in it. Or you go and get the mobile application framework plugin from the Oracle website and use your own Eclipse version. So if you don't want to have something downloaded that already contains Eclipse, but you have an Eclipse version, you can configure the plugin. So what I will start with is just creating an application. As soon as I have the mobile application framework configured, I get the entry here, math application. And a math application, first of all, requires me to give it a name. So HR DevOps. So you see that familiar for Java developers, I start creating a base package name, because that's in the end, everything I code will be in Java. I do have different versions of math. Right now we have 2.0 and 2.01. The next one is 2.1. If I have to develop for different versions of the product, I can switch here. So then I have 3 projects that get created in Eclipse. One is that takes all of the common configuration files, like for instance the Java Virtual Machine property settings. Another one is shared application logic, which we call application, and then the name with it. And then there's one what we call the view controller project, which actually holds the application itself. Now, the view controller projects, you can have as many as you want, because as I mentioned, you can create feature archive files and share the logic between applications. So I just stay with the defaults. Next is I have to tell it, because I'm in the development environment, what is the target in the end that I will deploy this to. So if I say, okay, add, and I go here, so I'm on iOS, so my logical choice is Xcode. I'd also have Android in here, so I could also navigate to my Android SDK so that I can run it directly on Android or compile it for Android. It fills in itself, just give it a name, where the name is irrelevant for the functionality. So then I can decide what platform I want to support, iOS 7.1, 7.0. There's also a version that comes out very shortly that then will have iOS 8 listed. Doesn't mean that we cannot run on iOS 8, but actually it will then use Xcode 6, or in Android it will use Android 5. So let's go for this one here. So that's all set up now. And then I generate all of the projects that I need. Now what this really does, this configuration, is it allows me in the end to do 3 types of deployment. I can take my application to deploy it to the iOS simulator. I can take it, deploy it to an IPA file, which is a file I can then take and upload to the App Store, or it allows me to do an on-device deployment. Yeah, so where I can connect a tablet or my phone and deploy it. So I do have, because this is why I left this dialog, there is a specific perspective that we can open up that will support you in building mobile applications. And I say yes. And here you see the three files, three projects. And I will step you through, so you will understand after this talk exactly how to build this. Yeah. So probably this will replace a tutorial. So what I'm working with, that's the View Controller project, so HR DevOps View. And in here, I do have a file called Math Feature Editor. Now, if you look at your smartphone or your tablet, you see a lot of icons in the menu, which we call the springboard, right? If you open up an application, if it starts with a springboard, you have several icons. Each of these icons has a functionality. Now, for a human resource application, that could be a functionality for managing departments, for managing employees. Each of these has functionality. We just call this features. And the feature can be built with different technologies, but they can also have different complexity. So let's build two features just for the sake for me to switch between. So one feature I want to create, let's call this Department Manager. And another feature. And these are just settings that end up in the configuration file as XML, Department Help. So I have two features. Now for this Department Help, I want to define the feature as HTML5. I'm not building a big HTML application here, but so I don't have files here, so let's create one and just call it Help. Here it is. So just nothing fancy in here. I guess you're probably better HTML developers than I am. You cannot variant. Oops. I love that quote. Okay, so that's my help. Yeah, so it's all help I can build within 60 minutes. So this one is where I will go more into details. And here I create an AMX task flow. Well, I can create a single page, but in this case I want to do a task flow. I say OK. And then I create this task flow. Okay. So first of all, I like it to be clean in my project. So let's abbreviate this with BTF for bounded task flow and department task flow. Okay, so this will bring up now the diagrammer that I showed you on the slide, and it will show up in the component palette the elements that I can put on this diagrammer. So this is my NT diagrammer. Now I get my domain expert, my technical innocent person, and try to talk with this guy. We come up with the following scenario. So we know that we need to have a browse departments page. Well, any typo in the naming is intentional. And then I want to show employees, just to show you master detail. Show employees. And if we have time, I like to show you how to edit one of these selections. Edit in the sense that the data goes back to the web service. So now what we need to do is we need to define, similar like in JavaServer Faces, we need to define control flows. So from browse departments, I go to show employees. And one thing that's very important on the web is animation. Yeah, you cannot go flat from one page to the other. So just go flip down. So then we create the other one. It's up here. So that's going back. Well, we do have, and those that work with JavaServer Faces and know controllers, you know that, for instance, we can use, if we have several navigation paths leading to one document, we can use a wildcard navigation flow, which we also support here. So you don't have to draw all the lines. Well, I do draw the lines, but in practical life, you would just have one line, have it a wildcard flow. And what we do have, we have implicit back navigation. That is that the framework at runtime will remember where you're coming from. Because if you use this wildcard flow and you come to the browse departments page and you just want to go back from where you came, then how would you do that? Because if that is shared, or this navigation case is shared, how would you get back? So we remember that. Anyway, so just to make it very apparent here, browse departments, and flip right. So that could be quite messy because I'm just randomly choosing what the transition is that I want to have. So of course it's edit department and another random, and the last one, again, browse departments here. So to navigate, all I need to do is on an action component, that could be a list item, that could be a button, a link, I only need to reference that string, and then I'm done. So that's good. So now the guy that actually has no idea about technology can go home. I understand the flow. I can work on it on my own. So one thing I want to do is start with the browse page. So double clicking on that. It doesn't release it yet. So did I create a circular reference? Oops. Okay, so just need to redo this. From everything that can go wrong, this one never did go wrong when I tried it. Edit department. So, okay, so this is that. I have this. No. Go here. Put that big down here. Just okay. Save it. And now go to my browse page and put this in a directory pages. I can decide if I want to have buttons here. I use the button just for one to navigate to the edit page in the end. Okay, so this is where actually we go into the tag editor here. So I have an output component which I call browse departments. And oops, so I changed the facet. That's not a good idea. It has to go here, browse departments. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then I do have a command button here. And button action. So let's go here. Doesn't show it, so all I need to do is, so let me get rid of that. That looks a little bit suspicious to me. Okay, so let's edit department again. So edit. Okay, so just for, in case it doesn't show it again. Okay. Oops, control here. So let's go back here and see if it finds it now. Otherwise I would just paste it in. Here we go. Edit department, show employees. Yeah, so I just needed to save it so it's refreshing here. So that would be edit department, and all it configures is just a string in here. And that is just enough for the controller to understand where I want to go when I press that button. So then I do the same here. Show employees. Okay, so this only needs to go back, so it doesn't need a... Okay, so let's call it output text employees. So just in case I change my mind and say, well, I need to have a button, I can just take it from somewhere, because this is all tech driven here. The only thing I want to change here is I don't want to have it edit department, so I want to have this to be browse department. So just get rid of that. And save it up, try again. No, just go browse department. So this one doesn't like me today. So let's go to the department task flow. It's browse department. I just want to go back. Show employees. So put as an action in here. So another thing I want to do is I want to give it a title. So just browse departments. And you see what I'm doing is I'm not coding much in Java right now. Sorry for that. I'm just doing declarative work with the components. And I also want to set the title here. This one here. And this one should be show employees. Okay. And the last one that I at least need to prepare is edit employees. Otherwise, the compiler will say that there is a page that doesn't exist. So pages in here, and leave that without anything doing right now. So as said, the edit case is what I will build when I have time left, which could be tough. Anyway, so the next step is now I do have a rough outline of the pages. I need to implement the browse departments. I need to implement the show employees as a master detail, which means I need data. Where do I get data from? Well, I do have my SOAP service. So yeah, so this one still is not updated yet, complaining about that not all pages are there, but actually in fact they are there. So I go here, right mouse click, new, and then there's an entry called data control. And that's the abstraction I mentioned that allows us to not only code with a consistent API, but also to use declarative development on this. So it's not a Java Bean data control, which I can use for almost everything. It's a web service data control. And I give it the remote URL, which I no longer have in memory, so I have to get it back here. So copying from here. It's my WSDS file. Go back to the tool and paste that in. Okay, so I'm okay with the name here. And that's, by the way, I'm okay with the name because I'm building the whole demo here. In an enterprise use case, it could be that the guy building the data controls or the data control adaptation is not the one building the mobile application. In this case, what you build here is a contract, so it has to be very descriptive. Yeah? Same for the methods. You will see that I just left the methods the way that the web service generated it, so I didn't annotate it. So this made me ending up with merge departments, which doesn't speak to anyone, right? And given that this shows on the data control later as a name, I should have annotated this and say update departments. So that speaks to everyone, yeah. Or just place order instead of update order, yeah. So I can now further tailor the API that I showed to the application developer. I can say, okay, I want to show all departments. I want to show employees in a department. And if we get to this, I want to merge departments, which means updating it. So just do that and hit finish. Now this now takes what it finds in the WSDL file, creates all of the attributes and generates data controls. These are the files that are getting impacted, so most of them get created. As mentioned, it's a XML framework that we're having here. And here is a data control manager that shows all of the data controls I have available. And I created one, but I have 3. Magic. Well, 2 are always there. There's one data control, which is the device feature data control. Now that gives you declarative access to the contacts, to GPS, to the camera. You just drag and drop that onto a page and it will render all of the input files for you. And if there is an action like get picture, it will generate the button or the link for you. The same is also accessible in Java. But for declarative development, we allow you to do it this way. And here's another one, which is the application features data control, that allows you to declaratively create components that allow you to navigate between different features and functionalities. Or just show the springboard, hide the springboard, and so on. So let's do this. So I just save it up and close this because there's another view to the data controls. And now I can start building my page here. So a typical starting point is when you build a page is that you have a list view. You know, these components that scroll endlessly vertically and allow you to select a specific entry. So here I do have the palette. So right now it's on text, so it shows me all of the UI components that I can work with, carousel, film strip, and so on. But there's another one, which is data, which allows me to hook the UI to data, to bind it directly without me coding it. And I have two options. One is the data control, another one is manage beans. And in my data controls, I do have the web service I just created. And here I have departments find all. This one has a method call. There's a return activity, and that has attributes. So I can pretty much see what are the attributes I have available. I can drop them individually, or in the case of my list view, I can say, okay, just drop that one in, and I want to have a list view being created out of this. So this comes up with a follow-up dialog because we have specific types of list views, more complex types that have images in it. I can even have a different row layout selected for the list view, as I will show you next. And I go just with a very simple approach, just to show that I can go very complex here. And with my simple one, I just choose what is the display information I want to show. And taking it from the data control, oops, come on. Here we go. I choose department name. Now what I can do in terms of a layout, I can just have the list showing rows with information, or I can switch it to cards, in which case I can have different areas within each of the lines to show information, which would give me the ability to show more information to the user. So not everything is a department. Yeah, it could be that this is a shopping cart, so you want to show products with different areas of information there. I could choose dividers, which will create an index. So if the information comes ordered by location ID, for instance, I can say, okay, the divider is the location ID, and then I get this little nice indexing that you know from mobile applications that allow me to go straight to a specific character or number. I don't have that, so hit finish, and this generates the Java code for that. There's a little bit more than just the Java, the AMX code that is getting generated. When I refresh the project here, then we see there's a math node, and in this math node there's something called a page definition. Now this page definition is actually the glue that binds the data that shows in the user interface with the web service. Now I can double click on that and create more information to this. For instance, what I want to do is I want to pass the department ID to my next page, to the employee page, so I can have my master data correlation working. So what I would do is I go to this entry here, and right now it has department name, which I selected as a display, but I can also select another property, in which case, if I save it here, this information now becomes available in the browse departments. So what I want to do is I want to fill. Where did I put it in? Oh, no. Whew. Okay. That's not good. I put it in the wrong page. Okay, so you know what? It's so quick and easy. I'll just redo it. Just go to data, data control. Find all, get departments, just drop that in, list view, take the normal one, replace department ID with department name, NACAM, department name, and hit finish. So that is rebuilt, save it, refresh this here. Okay, so I have math, page definitions, and now I should see the browse departments and do the same that I did. You see an ugly mistake, but how quickly you can recover? Everything is intentional. Yeah, I know. I admit That was not intentional. All right. So that's it. So now go to my browse page. Browse departments. So I have a list view. There are two things that need to happen on the list view. One thing that needs to happen on the list view is that it needs to navigate to the Show Employees page, and the other thing that needs to happen is that it passes the department ID to that page. So two things. And I need to do this on the list item. So I can go to my AMX tags now, and there are operational tags, and one is set property. Set property listener. And you see, in the end, everything ends up in JavaScript, but we try to avoid you writing to eagerly JavaScript. So if we can provide this as a common tag, we do that. Otherwise, if you want to write JavaScript in the MX page, you can, but shouldn't be a reason. So I just drag and drop this into the list item. So right after the output text. So this now says, okay, from. So from where do I get this? I go to the row, which is a variable, and I show you the variable in the list view because it accesses a collection, so there's a variable that holds the values for each row, and this is called row. You can rename it if you want. By default, it's row, and this shows department name, and it should show, gosh, it should show department. I'm in the right file, that's good. So let's verify this exists as well. It's saved. Okay, browse department. It's all fine. Okay, so let's give it another chance. So go here. Row. I know it's there, so you know what? I type it in. So normally that should show you the department ID. For as long as I know it's in the binding layer, I'm fine. And where should it go? Well, in here, for now, I decide to put this into a memory scope, a scope that is available on the other page as well. So page flow scope, and just call it dept ID. Now there's a reason not to use memory scopes directly, and that has to do with discoverability, because we do have expression language builder support. So everything that exists as an object, like the binding layer or the row variable, is available in a dialog for me to compose the expression language without knowing the expression language. If I write directly into a memory scope, this scope doesn't exist before I run the application, so I have to copy and paste. So my recommendation typically is use a managed bean for that, because this can be discovered. But for demos, I think it's fair enough. It's bound to an action. So first thing is done. Next is to go to the list item and to give it an action. And that action is just navigate to show employees. So first page is done. The last one, and I will make it in time, is to create the detail page. So let's go to show employees. And for show employees, I want to do two things. I want to list all of the employees in a department that are previously selected, and I want to show a graph with a salary on it. So as I mentioned, it's all about information, not necessarily about data. So again, I go to my data control. I would go to get employees find by department ID. That's a method exposed on the SOAP service. This also has a return node. I can just grab this in here and drop it here. So again, I have different choices here. I can create charts, I can create input forms, gauges, different style, geographic maps with overlay icons if I wanted. Now what I want to do is I want to have a custom layout, so I create an iterator, which is just a collection that stems over a set of data. And I don't want to see all of the data. Rearrange it a bit. I want to show that. I want to get rid of this one here, just to clean it up a bit. Otherwise, I will have to scroll too long at the end. So, and I hit finish. Now that creates the binding, and it recognized something. It recognized, well, I require an argument. Well, here, as a lazy programmer as I am, my argument is arg0. Speaks to everyone, right? you know that that is the department ID, because that's the Java coders encryption. Arc1 is always department ID. Now, actually, I was lazy. I should have annotated the SOAP service much better, because we pick it up there. Yeah. So if it's annotated and called department ID, I would see department ID as the argument name. And all I do here is I need to copy and paste. If I had followed my best practice recommendation and had used a managed bean, I could look up the managed bean here and get the expression language composed. So in this case, I just copy it in and bring. So I can see it much better here in the overview. There's an iterator, and this iterator has a bunch of data in it. I'm German. We are very structured, so I need to beautify this a bit. So I want to have a panel form layout just surrounding it. So I have a nice little separation between the different employees. So it's panel form layout. I take it over here and copy it and go to the end before the iterator tag. Okay, and that's it. So the next thing I want to do after the iterators, I want to show a graph. And for this graph, again, I take the same return node and we'll create a chart. Let's go for the bar chart, which is the quickest for me to create. Again, we have a lot of DVT components that make it visually appealing. As I showed in my initial demo, I can look up the attributes. So salary is what should go into the bar. And on the x-axis, last name. I could choose last name and first name or a combination of other attributes, but that's okay for me here. So there's one last thing I need to do. So I pass the argument. I actually look it up on the employees page. Now I need to tell the employees page, whenever I navigate to the employees page, refresh, requery the data. Again, it's not advisable from a performance perspective always to go back to the web service, but that's a completely different story on how to cache things. Yeah. So I'm not going into this, but I want to go into just refreshing that. And then I go to the show departments page definition, the metadata file that goes with it. So we have show employee page definition. Okay. Okay, so here I go to executables, and there I have get department find all iterator, which is due to my misdevelopment in the beginning. So I ignore this, but then this one is what I need to re-execute. So what I do is I just choose new, and then there is a invoke action, which I can give a name. Always execute employees. Sounds bad. Execute employees. Query. Okay, that's better. Oh boy, this is videotaped. So don't do the cut there before I fixed it. Okay, so then I do have the entry in the executables, and for this now I need to, where do you put this? Because I need to tell it what exactly it should do. Outline. There's always something that happens that haven't happened before. Because this one is supposed to show me the configuration section. Ah, here. I'm just blind, you know, getting nervous with 30 minutes to go. So here I select which of the methods I want to invoke, and that's here. So now I'm done. Hey. Come on. We don't know if it was successful, but at least entertaining so far, right? By the way, I'm a strict fan of. So it's a philosophy in development. NGL not good looking but functional. Yeah. With the belief that everything that works can be beautified, but not many things that look good can be made functional. So that is very brief what you see here. So next is I can deploy this. run configurations. So I need to tell it what I want to do. So here I have an entry for math applications, create a new deployment target. So that's all good here. I don't need a mobile provisioning profile here. So it's using my DevOps. I can provide additional, more advanced information to my deployment. Do I want to see this in the run menu? Yes. Do I want to see this in the debug menu? Maybe not. And apply this, and then I can run it from here. What now happens is that this should compile my application, then launch my iOS simulator. So the question is, do I always need Eclipse to deploy that? No, because you already see that we have a bunch of information coming out here, so you can use unscripts as well. Yeah. So once you have that created, you have the deployment profiles, you can deploy that with unt and redo that all the time. So this will take 1 minute and 40 seconds. So what I want to do is show you something that I haven't showed you yet. So this will come up in the end with the iOS simulator. There's another file of interest, which is the not the data control manager. It's up here. It's the application editor. And there are a bunch of things I can do that I can configure for a mobile application. So first of all, the registered features. Now I built 2, so I have 2 in here. So my mobile application knows of 2 features. You have the option here to hide a feature, just in case, for instance, the feature shouldn't be shown on the springboard, but your application logic will navigate into it. Or someone has not the authorization to see a feature, so you can put a constraint on it. Or you can have a feature that you say it should show on the mobile phone, but it shouldn't show on a tablet, and vice versa. Now this can be declaratively configured here. Navigation, now this tells me now what is it what I want to see. Right now I have a navigation bar, which is just a bottom bar that allows me to switch between different functionality areas called features. I can also say just render a springboard, in which case it will have a detachable springboard that we generate for you. Now springboards in an application typically are very design-centric. So you want to have your springboard, your design as a springboard, which is why we allow you to create a custom feature that just represents the springboard. So you can design your own springboard with your own look and feel, with your own icons, that separates your mobile application from any other application. And then I can show toggle buttons and so on. Device access, now I have to tell the mobile device to some point what is it what the user should grant me permission on. I need network access. Well, yes, I'm working with web services, so I need to have network access. But I can also request file access if I want to take pictures, or if I want to read documents or even upload documents to the device. I need to have file access to read the content.